So I want to go through these slides. System unit, we're going to start with, and then we're going to go through input and output devices. Another thing I want to tell you is that a lot of you are not technical people. You're not going to be working with technology directly, like if you were working for an IT department, an information technology department, right? So I'm not going to go into super detail about this stuff. I want to ask you questions that will pertain to the subject matter. This is chapters 5. We're going to be in chapter 5 and then chapter 6 of your book. All right. I want to make sure I can go over everything from this standpoint, from the general computer technology standpoint, to make you successful in both your personal and professional lives. So let's talk about the system unit. All right, so what is the system unit? All right, and again, I'm not going to go into major detail. I'm not going to cover every little point on these slides, but what you need to know is that the system unit is the system chassis. All right, if you want to think about what a chassis is, have you ever looked at a computer and you see the box of a computer? That is the system unit. All right, if you are dealing with a laptop computer, the inside of the laptop, the actual laptop itself, and everything inside is the system unit. All right, it houses all the electronic components for a computer. Now, you're going to see, you see this picture here. We have a picture of a headset, and that's for virtual reality. And we have a picture of, it looks like, of a Sony PlayStation there. All right, the Sony PlayStation that you see there, and that's that box you see on the screen right there, that is a picture of a system unit. So even video game systems will have system units. Now, devices come in many shapes and sizes, and they all are very similar to one another. They all have system boards, they have microprocessors, and they have memory. Right? So a system board, if you looked inside your laptop or your desktop computer, you would see a circuit board. All right, and it looks like this. All right, or like this. Right? This is the inside. This is the system circuit board of a laptop computer. This is the circuit board of a desktop computer, and even a cell phone like this has a circuit board. All right, the circuit board is also known as the motherboard, all right? Not the fatherboard, but the motherboard, okay? The motherboard, you may hear that term sometimes. A motherboard contains all the circuits inside the computer. It also contains some of the hardware necessary to make the computer work, like the brain of the computer. The brain of a computer is called the Central Processing Unit, or the CPU. My first question to you is, what is another name of the brain of the computer? Another name is the Central Processing Unit, or the CPU. We're going to get into that in a little while. There are other things on the motherboard. All right. Another thing on the motherboard is the memory of a computer. Right. The memory of a computer is different from the storage of a computer. I believe I clarified the differences between the two during another live chat. Memory is very important. The single most important upgrade for a computer system is upgrading the system's memory. If you have a laptop or a desktop at home and you want your computer to run faster, upgrade the memory. Now, the name of the memory for a computer is called RAM, Random Access Memory, RAM, RAM. So question number 2 is, what is the name of memory in a computer? It's called RAM. All right. The microprocessors. All right. Now, a microprocessor is what I mentioned before. It's the CPU. All right. So a microprocessor, you may hear that sometimes called a CPU or a microprocessor. It's the same thing. Right. And the system board is also known as the motherboard. Right. So as I mentioned, the system board or main board or motherboard controls communication for the entire computer system. You have a lot of parts, so if you ever looked inside your computer, you would see something that looks like this. All right, you see a lot of expansion slots. These lines are expansion slots. You see it says slot here, okay? And then there's a socket, and in the socket is where you plug in the CPU, the main processor of the computer, the central processing unit. But it's plugged into there. Sometimes you'll see a fan on top of the CPU. That's because the CPU gets very, very hot. All right, there has been some instances of computers actually getting on fire because the CPU got so hot and the fan wasn't working that the CPU actually went on fire, and then it burnt the rest of the computer. All right, if I go back one slide, you see, I don't know how well you can see this here. All right, right here, this is a fan. So the CPU is always underneath the fan. Okay, so you see this fan. It's not spinning right now, obviously, but you see the picture of the fan. The CPU is underneath it, right? So on the motherboard of the computer, we have other expansion slots, right? We have sockets, and we have lines, all right? This is a circuit board. So there are circuits, all right? And data travels along all these lines around your computer, right? And the computer is usually made up of silicon. You ever hear of Silicon Valley in California? All right, Silicon Valley contains a lot of the tech companies that are billion-dollar tech companies. It's called Silicon Valley because computers are primarily built from silicon. All right, sockets and chips. I went over that. I mean, we're not going to go into detail about this, all right, but you should just know that the motherboard or the system board contains a variety of electronic components. All right, there are sockets, all right, and then chips plug into sockets. Just like you'd plug a plug into a socket, the CPU is a chip you can plug into a socket. All right, another socket on your computer's motherboard is the RAM socket where you plug in your memory. All right, when you plug in memory, also known as RAM, it's also plugged into a socket. And that's how you can upgrade your computer. All right, the memory is very important for a computer. The memory works with the central processing unit or the CPU to put whatever is being processed on the computer's screen. Now, the way the information travels on a motherboard is through something called a bus. Right? The computer has a bus. And a bus, if you think about a bus that is like a city bus, it travels around the city, it brings passengers around the city. All right, think of the passengers as data. All right, data is what travels on the buses of a computer motherboard. That facilitates the computer working. I went over the microprocessor, also known as central processing unit. Right? You don't have to worry about the two basic components for this. I mean, you need to review what's in your book for the quizzes that you take. All right, so they may ask you these questions on the quizzes, but for all intents and purposes for this chat and for general knowledge, you do not need to know that. Excuse me. Now, the microprocessor or the CPU is measured in speed. Now, what's important is that you understand some of the units of speed. Okay, I'm not going to hold you too responsible for it, but look at microsecond, nanosecond, picosecond, and femtosecond. All right, so we have a millionth of a second, billionth, trillionth, and quadrillionth of a second. All right, so basically, if we let's look at the easiest one here, the microsecond, millionth of a second. What is 1/1,000,000th of 1 second? Now, that is almost really difficult to imagine or fathom. All right, take a second. As I've been speaking, 10 seconds just passed. So take 1/1,000,000th of a second. So we can look at speed. It means that if you have a computer, if you have a CPU that's processing at a microsecond clock speed, it means that it's processing one instruction every millionth of a second, which is really phenomenal, right? Now, going on to the next slide, all right, sometimes you may hear of multi-core processors. So if you're buying a computer, you may want to look at how many cores a CPU has within it. The more cores, the more powerful the CPU. So you may see something saying dual-core CPU, quad-core, all right? Dual-core is 2 cores, all right? 4 cores is quad-core. Right, so the more cores the CPU has, the quicker it's going to be. If you ever have to evaluate a computer system, you should determine how many cores your CPU has. Now, relatively speaking, all right, the more cores, the quicker your CPU, the quicker your computer. All right, but that's not always the case. All right, there's other factors that can play a role. Now on the screen too, you will see AMD and Intel. AMD is a computer manufacturer. It means Advanced Micro Devices, and Intel is another computer manufacturer. All right, these are actually processor manufacturers. They process or they create central processing units, CPUs. So the one that has the most market share is Intel, and then comes AMD. right? But you may hear of these terms before. They're big billion-dollar companies, all right? Intel is from the United States. AMD, I believe, is from South Korea. Right. Something you may hear of too is a GPU. A GPU is a graphics processing unit. And what the GPU does, it exists on a graphics card. So if you're playing some really intense video games, you can upgrade your computer's graphics card. The graphics card is what your computer monitor is plugged into. All right. Some people will buy a high-performance graphics card. It has a GPU built in. It makes the game move quicker. Graphics, animations run smoother. All right. It also affects the colors and the resolution of your monitor. All right. And that is the device that you use to see the images on your computer. All right. So you may hear of GPUs. A GPU is a graphics processing unit. Memory. All right. Now, I don't want to confuse you too much with memory, but there are typically three types of memory for a computer. All right. Three well-known types is the RAM. The RAM is the most popular. Like I said, the single biggest upgrade for speed that you can make for your computer is upgrading the RAM. So question number 3 is, what is the single biggest improvement you can make to your computer, all right, in regards to speed? The answer is upgrading your RAM. So that's question number 3. You can always rewind this if you missed the questions. ROM is another type of memory that exists on your motherboard. All right, it's used for starting up your computer. When you first turn on your computer, you're booting it up. Your computer needs to know what to do. It goes to ROM for instructions of what to do. All right, flash memory is also something that is part of your computer. It's inside the computer, and it helps control some of the components that are attached to the computer. You can also upgrade your flash memory in your computer. All right, flash memory. What happens with that is that sometimes there are newer versions of memory that is built in the computer. So flash memory you can't upgrade. You can actually flash it. All right. When I'm talking about upgrade, I'm talking about pulling it out and replacing it with more memory. You can do that with RAM. All right. With flash memory, you can upgrade it, but you do it a little differently. All right. You actually download software and it automatically flashes. All right. It'll actually put instructions in that memory to kind of make it more powerful, have it do more things. It just is something that it's like updating your computer when you update your applications. All right, you go to Windows Update. You can upgrade, update applications. Flash memory can be updated in that similar way, except usually your computer manufacturer. So if you have a Dell or an HP or a Lenovo, all right, those companies will be able to flash your memory for you. Now, you can usually, when you buy a computer like that, it comes with a piece of software that checks to see whether or not your flash memory has to be upgraded or updated. All right, you should always check that. On mine, I have a little assistant down there. I don't know if you can see it. I have an HP. This little question mark here, if I click on that, it'll actually tell me whether or not I need to update my flash memory. All right. You may have something similar on your computer. You should always check that and update it if you need to. But just be careful with updating. You should really do it with someone who knows a little bit about computers, because you can't turn off your computer while this is being updated. All right. If you do, you can really destroy your computer. So you have to just make sure you have a constant power source, and if you ever need to update the flash. All right. Now, RAM, what I mentioned before, it's memory. Okay. And a big part of RAM, it's called RAM being volatile or temporary. It means that when you turn off your computer, whatever is in RAM is lost. So whatever's in the screen or on the screen right now is in your RAM. Volatile means that it needs electricity to retain its contents. When you turn off the computer, there's no more electricity in the computer. Everything in RAM disappears. All right, so what you can think about is that RAM is whatever's on your screen is in RAM. All right. You can always upgrade your RAM, right, by buying additional RAM. Right? We're not going to go into virtual memory. Don't worry about that for this. ROM, I mentioned to you. You can upgrade the ROM. Right? You have flash ROM. And you can also upgrade your computer by buying expansion cards. They go into expansion slots. right? So if you had a desktop computer, you want to upgrade the sound, you can buy a sound card, right? If you're in the classroom and you look at the computers in the classroom, desktop computers, you will see that they all have something called a NIC, a network interface card, that is built, that is actually looks like this, and it's actually inside an expansion slot in your computer, and it actually facilitates connection to the internet or to a network, right? This is an expansion card. It plugs into one of these slots in the back. I went over buses and bus lines. There's certain types of buses you may have heard of. One is called a USB, Universal Serial Bus. So when you plug your thumb drive into your computer, all right, people sometimes carry a thumb drive or a pen drive or a USB drive. You plug that in. It's actually plugging into a port that is connected to your system board, your motherboard's buses. And it allows for facilitation of data to be saved to, or to be loaded into the computer or saved to your thumb drive. There are other types of buses you may have heard of. FireWire is a type of bus that is used primarily by Apple devices. And you may have heard of PCI Express. It's another type of bus that is used for certain devices. Okay. Again, ports allow you to connect to the computer's motherboard. All right. They're sockets. An HDMI port allows you to connect a monitor, a display, right, to your computer. USB, you have sometimes these things in the back. You have Ethernet ports. It allows you to connect to the internet through a network, right? And you have video ports, allows you to connect monitors, right? Monitors can also be connected through the HDMI ports, right? I went over a lot of these. FireWire, let's see. Cables, you may have seen some of these cables. You may be very familiar with USB. This is the most popular. You may come across an HDMI cable. Ethernet cable looks like this connection to a network and then to the internet. And Thunderbolt is one made by Apple. All right. This is another type of connection. All right. Power supplies. All right. Computers need power to operate. So obviously there are power supplies attached to it. All right. You may see, they sometimes call it a brick. Right. So the power supply helps regulate power. And there are even some power sources that can be used with a mobile phone, all right, to charge up the phone. So you may have seen these pads, and you have these chargers that do not require wires. All right, electronic data instructions. I mean, we don't have to go over the different types of signals, but something to keep in mind is that computers have something called digital signals. A digital signal means that a voice that comes out of you as a person, that's called an analog voice, okay? An analog voice is what we hear in the natural world. Now, what happens, a computer takes the analog voice and converts it to digital. Digital means digits, all right? So a computer can only see in 2 digits, ones and zeros. That's all it sees, all right? So question number 4 is, what does digital mean? Digital means digits that a computer can only see in ones and zeros. So anything in a computer is called digital. All right, so computers only see ones and zeros. So question number 4 is, what does digital mean? All right, so you can see these are the digits that computers see. All right, and then they're actually, and I'm not going to go into detail. If you're a computer programmer, you have to learn, the numeric representations and binary representation and how to do binary arithmetic. Don't worry about it in this class. All right. All you need to know is that these digits are grouped together by a computer, all right, as bits. So each of these digits is called a bit, a binary digit. All right. Binary means 2. All right. It's called a binary digit because there are only 2 states, 1 and 0. All right. And they're grouped, all right, 8 at a time. So if we count this, 3, 4, 5, 6 is 8, 8, 8. All right. So the computer will group these bits. All right. And 8 bits is a byte. All right, so question number 5 is, how many bits are in a byte? So computers only see in this way, all right, just like what you see here. And computers can do a lot of amazing things by taking, creating different combinations of ones and zeros to represent sound, to represent images, to facilitate the transmission of data. Don't worry about character encoding. That's beyond the scope. Careers in IT. All right. If you want to learn more about this, you can look to become a computer technician who repairs computers. Something that employers will look for is at least an associate's degree, all right, in computer repair or certification. All right, you can get certification. Something you may want to look at is the CompTIA certification, CompTIA A+. So you can do a Google search for A+ certification if you want to learn more about how you can get a certificate that proves that you know how to troubleshoot and repair computers. All right, so we're going to go on to our next presentation. Something that is future of computers, just really quickly, is that computers are now being hooked up to people's brains and soon may be able to image all the brain's electrical impulses, which is kind of concerning to me because that's where I keep going on about artificial intelligence. If computers can get into our brains, it can start thinking like us and think it's more powerful than us and start controlling all of society. So just have those things in mind. Now we're going to go on to our next presentation, which is input and output devices. So we'll look at that one next. Move this to this screen. Close this, make it nice and big for you. A lot of this I already went over, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about this either. I have to ask you 5 more questions, though. All right, so an input device is any data or instructions entered into a computer. All right, so an input device is actually not the data or the instructions. The device is what facilitates the data or the instructions from getting from the outside into your computer. All right, so some of the most popular input devices are keyboards, mice, pointing devices, scanners, image capturing devices, audio input devices like microphones. These are some pictures of laptops. Some laptops are actually virtual, which means that you can't touch them physically. They're actually embedded into your computer screen as the virtual keyboard you see below. Right. Pointing devices would be a mouse, a touch screen, a game controller. All right. It allows an intuitive interface. It can accept gestures. All right. And some of that would be moving the mouse pointer around. It's more intuitive, means it's more natural to move something and to drag things, just like you're picking them up and moving them from one place to another. Right. Pointing devices are supposed to emulate that. There are different types of mice, all right? There's the optical mouse and there's the wireless mouse, all right? There's also a corded mouse, right? Right now I actually have a USB mouse plugged into my computer. I seem to like that the best. I don't have to change the batteries. If I take my mouse and I turn it upside down, you would see that the mouse also has a red light that comes out of it, right? That's called an optical mouse. Sometimes you may have a mouse that has a ball at the bottom. Those are the old types of mice, right? Or mouses. Some people say mouses. That's not proper grammar, but people say, oh, more than one mouse is mouses, right? It really should be mice, right? So when we have a computer, sometimes we can bend the rules a little bit and we can say mouses, but in my case, I like to say mice. So if we have more than one mouse, we have mice, right? Some mice have trackballs. They have little balls underneath them. You may have seen them before. I know back in the day there used to be lint that used to get caught in those balls and it used to make that mouse hard to move. Right now, the new ones or the newer ones have optics, right? Lights and lasers. Something that you have on a laptop is a touchpad, which kind of serves like a mouse. I'm moving my touchpad right now. I'm moving this around using my finger on my touchpad. All right, touch screen too is what I'm looking at right now. It's my laptop computer. It has a touch screen. I can actually take my hand, which I'm doing right now, and I don't know if you see anything appear on the screen. You may see a little twirl if you look close enough. That's me actually taking my finger and putting it on the screen. All right, touch screen, you know what that is. All right, it's another way to interface with the computer. Gaming controllers. All right, if you like to play games, you may have a gaming controller. All right, it provides input to computer games. It's supposed to mimic. All right, it mimics like what you would do in the real world, right? So sometimes if you're flying a plane, all right, pulling up, pulling down, it's like, you're using the gears of the plane and you're throttling and all that other good stuff, right? A lot of things can be simulated using gaming controllers. A scanning device, all right? Scanners actually convert scan data into a form the system unit can process. So a scanner will take something physical and then make it into a digital format, right? That's a cool scanner that you see there. It looks like it's taking an item and maybe making a 3D model of it. That's a 3D scanner, all right? And that's being put inside the computer. A card reader, all right? Sometimes you may have a credit card, you go to the supermarket, you want to buy groceries, you're sticking it into a card reader, all right? A card reader will be able to take data off a debit or credit or identification card and then put it into a digital format, into ones and zeros that a computer can understand. Right, barcode readers, same thing. You go to the supermarket, sometimes you can use a scanner, all right, that can read barcodes off products. And then we have something called an RFID, a radio frequency identification scanner or a reader, right? What this does is that sometimes you may have, like your passport has an RFID chip in it, all right? It helps validate the authenticity of the item, right? A good thing that sometimes people will do, they'll actually embed one of these chips in a dog or a cat, usually in the ear, or even to me, that's a cruel thing to do, or just have it on the dog's collar, but a dog can lose its collar. But some people will do that. I mean, to me, is it cruel? Does it really hurt the pet? Not really sure. I just always feel, maybe it's just me, that I don't want anything inside my body or my pet's body, all right, in that way. People actually have been getting these things embedded in their own bodies for health reasons, right? Sometimes, but I think it could be used for tracking people too, so you have to watch out for that. Right? You may see some of these other types of ways computers can take real things and convert them to digital things. Something that is really popular is OCR, optical character recognition. All right. Sometimes a computer can take a pre-printed. So if I'm writing something on a piece of paper, I can take an OCR scanner. A lot of scanners do this automatically. It has OCR technology built in. It'll take what I write and then print it out in a digital document on the screen. So it can take something handwritten and put it inside, say, a Word document as a digital document, which is cool. So I would actually see the printed stuff that I use with my hand. It'll turn into characters inside the document. Right, imaging capturing devices. We have digital cam, we have webcams, right? If you've ever Zoomed before, you've used a webcam, all right? That is another good type of input device. So these are input devices. Right, there are audio input devices, all right? There are, one of the most popular audio input device is the microphone, right? Microphone can also recognize your voice, turns your voice into a digital format. So I'm talking to you live right now, all right, from my home. As I'm speaking, the computer's taking my voice and converting it into a digital signal, ones and zeros, that is then being reassembled for you and is coming out of your speakers. Right, so my voice right now is digitized as you hear it. Right. Output. Now let's go to output. We have the most popular output devices are monitors and printers. All right, those are the two most popular. The third most popular is a speaker. Right, so I'm going to ask you, I asked you 5 questions already. I'm going to ask you a 6th question. The 6th question is, give me 2 input devices. The 7th question is, give me 2 output devices. So you know what a monitor is, all right? That's a picture of a monitor. I'm not going to go into too much detail about monitors, but you should know that there are 3 basic types of monitors. There are LCD monitors, there are LED monitors, and there are OLED monitors. The LCD are a little bit older, but they're very cost effective. The LED monitors are actually have better picture quality, and the OLED is actually a picture quality that beats LCD and LED. And obviously, the better picture quality, the more expensive the monitor. So LCDs are going to be the cheapest, followed by LED and then OLED. An ebook, you may have heard of ebooks. So if you have an Amazon Kindle, you can buy that. Those are types of monitors too that produce images that reflect light. Right, other monitor types, you may see flex screens that you see there. That's something that has just been introduced to the market, where you have these cell phones now and you can bend them. I'm not sure if you have them, but these are bendable screens, which are pretty cool. They still have to go a little bit ways with the technology. All right, digital projector is something that you may see in a lot of classrooms. right? It projects images from a monitor onto a screen or wall. All right, printers. All right, printer is really a popular device. It translates information that has been processed by the system unit onto the printed page. Right, something that is really cool are 3D printers. All right, this is a 3D printer. A 3D printer will take little plastic pellets and then create images, actually create actual products from images on the screen. One big thing about a 3D printer that is very controversial is that people are printing guns using this technology. So a lot of people are saying that's really controversial and they should be banning 3D printers, right? Another type of printer that's very popular is a laser printer. Uses laser light to produce images. All right, it's more expensive than an inkjet printer. Inkjet printers are usually now get them between $30 and $80. All right, it uses ink on the printed page. A big difference between the two is that laser printers use something called toner to put information on a page through a laser. Laser printers are more cost effective. They're more expensive initially, but the toner lasts a lot longer than ink. Ink can dry up, and inkjet cartridges, all right, these ink cartridges that go into the printers, they usually run out pretty quickly. Another type of printer is a cloud printer. All right, a cloud printer is just a printer that's connected to the internet. So if I have a printer at home and I want to print something out at home and I'm at work, I can connect to my printer that's at home through my network. All right, and that would be considered a cloud printer. Audio and video devices. So an audio and video device would translate audio information from the computer. All right, and also video device would transfer video information. All right, so anyway, we're looking at audio devices right now. An audio device for a computer would be like something like headphones. All right, something called Bluetooth technology is a technology that facilitates communication wirelessly with, say, something like headphones. So you can connect your headphones to your mobile phone, to your laptop, to your desktop using something called Bluetooth. All right, other types of combination input and output devices. So when we talk about, we talked about input devices, we talked about output devices. Let's talk a little bit about a combination of the two. Another name for both an input and an output device is a communications device. All right, so that's question number 8. What's another name for both an input and an output device? All right, so that's the question. The answer is communications device. So that would be something like a virtual reality headset. Input device, you're moving around, right? It's inputting information on the computer, and then there's a monitor in there that you're looking at that's taking information out of the computer to you. So you're putting information in, information's coming back out. Same thing with a headset, which has a microphone here, right? And then you have information that you're putting into the computer by speaking in, and information is coming out of the computer, coming into your ears, all right, through the speaker part of the headset. Drones, all right? Now we're going to drones. Take input from a controller and the output device is the drone. So a drone is something that's almost like an automated robot, right? It can fly in the air. It's almost like a plane that can be controlled in certain ways, all right? Drones also are very controversial because they can interfere with air traffic controllers and planes and other things like power lines, right? Robots are also input and output devices because there are sensors, there are inputs. Robots can speak, they can touch. You have data going both ways there. All right, let's see what else we have here. Now, this starts wrapping up with ergonomics, right? My question number 9 is, what is ergonomics? All right, so there's the answer. It's the study of human factors related to things people use. Ergonomics means, when we talk about computers, is that there is furniture and other devices like mice, computer keyboards that are ergonomic. It means that they conform to the human body. Right? So again, question number 9 is, what is ergonomics? When you have a device or something that conforms to the human body, it means it's going to prevent less strain on the body, which is a good thing. Right? Then there are ergonomic challenge devices, right? So portable devices like laptops, tablets, smartphones, they're not set up for ergonomics. So you're actually hurting your body by always continually looking down at your cell phone You have people always on the train or on the bus and people walking around, not paying attention. Head's always tilted down. That's not good for your neck, right? Same thing, sometimes laptops too. You can't really set up the laptop ergonomically because it could be on your lap and you're straining, you're hunched over using it. Got to be careful. You want to make sure that you save yourself. Zoom, you ever hear of Zoom fatigue? Means that your body is not used to sitting there for such a long time staring at a screen using Zoom. So you got to watch out for those types of things, right? Careers in IT, right? So some things that you can get into from this chat would be, you can be a technical writer, prepare instruction manuals for some of these hardware devices. What do you need? You need a communications degree or a journalism degree or an English degree. You can also have a specialized degree within a technical field for writing technical manuals like that. I'll look to the future. All right, the Internet of Things, smartwatch, web-connected car. You can read more about this. Internet of Things means that everything eventually is going to be connected to the internet. Think of kitchen appliances like your refrigerator, your microwave, your dishwasher. All right, they may already be connected to the internet. All right, you would know that if they were, probably, right? But in the future, they're saying everything. Your cars are now connected to the internet. Look at the Tesla cars that can be upgraded through wireless technology. All right, so question number 9 is, what is the Internet of Things? The Internet of Things means, what does that term mean? All right, it means that eventually everything is going to be connected to the internet, including the human body. And then the last question is going to ask you, question number 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So question number 10, the last question, is give me one thing from this chat that you learned, that you thought was interesting, anything that I went over, right? So have a wonderful, wonderful week. I asked you 10 questions. Please upload them as the live chat assignment for this week.